So I just released a new song called Peace. It's a fairly simple song. It's about having peace even in the midst of the storms of life. And that's not a very original topic. There's a lot of scriptures and songs and books about that. The dictionary defines peace as freedom from disturbance, tranquility. And it's hard to find peace in this life. There's so much going on all the time, even when we're not in the midst of the storms. So how do we find peace in a world that's not peaceful? Like most of us, all of us probably, I've been through a lot of rough places, times, and after much struggling, attempting to get out of the rut and find that elusive peace, I eventually come to the reality that is in the following quote. Biblical peace is more than a state of inner tranquility. It's a state of wholeness and completeness. Now the song says, peace, you are peace. And that's talking about the Lord, you are peace. I have found that this wholeness, this completeness, this peace is not a thing or a state of mind or soul. This peace is actually found in the person of Jesus Christ. And we're going to talk more about that, so stay tuned. Continuing to talk about my latest song, simply called Peace. I'm Jewish by birth, and I'm familiar with the term shalom. Now, shalom is the Hebrew word for peace, and it appears over 200 times in the Bible. I want to read this statement about that word. In modern Israel, when someone greets you or says goodbye, they will typically say shalom. In saying this, they're actually saying more than just hello or goodbye, and more than just a simple peace be with you. They're actually saying something more along the lines of, may you be filled with a complete and perfect peace, and be full of well-being. Peace of mind and spirit be upon you. Beyond being just a simple wish for peace and happiness, the word suggests a state of fullness, overflowing inner and outer joy and peaceful serenity. One of the names of God is Yahweh Shalom, the Lord, our peace. And Jesus is called the Prince of Peace. And only God, through his son Jesus, can bring this shalom, which fulfills the hopes and longings of the human heart. I want to read this from John 14. Shalom I leave with you. My shalom I give to you, not as the world gives it to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. Shalom I leave with you. The second verse of my latest release piece says, life, you are life in a dry and worn out land. You live inside of me, and on that rock I stand. And here's a couple scriptures that go along with that. Psalm 63 says, O God, you are my God. Earnestly I will seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My body longs for you in a dry and weary land where there is no water. I have seen you in the sanctuary and beheld your power and your glory. Because your love is better than life, my lips will glorify you. Colossians 1:27 says, God has planned to give a vision of the full wonder and splendor of his secret plan for the sons of men. And the secret simply is this: Christ in you, the hope of glory. So I minister at this Christian halfway house a few times a year. There's normally about 10 guys there. And last night I went in and everyone was really down. Well, over the last 2 weeks, 5 of the men have returned to their old ways and were no longer at the house. And what really struck me was that rehabs, prisons, halfway houses, they can be really helpful. We can enforce drug testing and rules, and we can teach about behavioral modification. But in this dry and worn out land, I find that we all need more than lifestyle changes to find peace. We need life itself. Jesus said, I am the truth, the life, and the way. And we'll talk about that more next time. In our last segment, talking about my latest release, Peace, we said that Jesus is life. In John 14:6, Jesus says this about himself: I am the way and the truth and the life. He also says in John 6:35, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger, and whoever believes in me shall never thirst. When I became a Christian, I had no vocabulary for what had happened to me. I was in terrible emotional, physical, and spiritual condition. I'm not going to go into the details of that right now, but I was dying. And in an instant, something changed. Standing at the counter of the department store I was working, something dramatic happened. I didn't say a specific prayer or do anything other than decide I was going to take a step towards Jesus. I had no idea what that meant. But I have described what had happened to me at that moment as it was like I had a piano tied to my back and it was removed, or I was suffocating and I started to breathe again. But the reality is, I was dying and I was given life. The word that I did not know at the moment that for what had happened to me was, I was born again. Galatians 2:20 says, I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but it is Christ who lives in me. It was a spiritual rebirth, and I pray that experience for everybody. The end of my song, Peace, is pretty strong musically and vocally, and it's not really that peaceful sounding. But this is to emphasize the idea that peace is not dependent on our surroundings or our situations. There's a line in the chorus of Peace that says, though I pass through troubled waters, you go with me. You're all I need to see. And Psalm 23 has always been a really important and helpful scripture to me. Verse 4 of Psalm 23 says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. And one commentary says this, David wrote this while remembering his fearful experiences. He was aware of the potential dangers that may befall him. However, he was confident that God was with him all the time. The Lord did not remove the presence of evil, but removed the fear of evil. And Isaiah 43:2 says, when you go through deep waters, I will be with you. When you go through rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. Now, I have had more of my share of physical dangers, but more often these troubled waters are emotional and inward. We've all had our troubled waters, and I can't imagine going through these times without the one who is peace.